Hello DIYers. Today we're doing something I've never done before in my life, and the results show it. That's right, we're going to learn how to weld. Welding is a great skill to pick up as an automotive DIYer. It'll come in handy if you want to fix a rusted exhaust or fabricate a part down the line, like an engine mount. All of this was made possible by BestArc, giving me an opportunity to try out one of their MIG-TIG combo welders. So thanks to BestArc, and let's get started with the obligatory unboxing and first impressions. Before we jump in, let me issue the disclaimer. I'm going to show you the basics of what I learned as part of my automotive DIY journey, but I'm in no way qualified to give actual welding advice. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt and treat it as a starting point to do your own research. For me, my research began with understanding what BestArc was sending me. I mean, as a complete beginner, just seeing that this MIG145 welder had the capabilities of doing gas-based MIG and TIG welding, along with stick welding, was good, I guess? But as a beginner with no equipment, I definitely don't have a bottle of welding gas laying around. And that's when I learned about gasless flux core welding. In short, the role of welding gas like argon is to shield the welding material from contamination when it's at its highest temperature. The wiring for flux core contains elements that make it self-shielding, thereby not requiring an external shielding gas. The trade-off is that it's a little bit messier and not as consistent as gas-based welding. But for a DIYer, not having to invest in additional equipment to get through a project makes gasless flux core welding a great option. And since the unit here does support gas welding, this welder is a great beginner pickup that has some future-proofing ability and can support you as you grow more advanced. This video is only going to show you how to set up for flux core welding. I do plan on exploring gas-based welding in a future video. So if you're interested in joining me on my journey, please do subscribe along with liking and commenting to help YouTube know that my video is worth recommending to others. Welding is done with electricity, so we have to pay attention to polarity. For flux core welding, as per the instructions, we'll set up the machine with the earth clamp in the positive position and the adapter plug in the negative position. Next, we'll set up the welding wire, which you do on this part here. BestArc really makes things easy by including a pretty clear diagram on the inside bottom of the top cover. And the kit comes bundled with flux wire, so we'll be using that to set up. And speaking of electricity, this BestArc unit supports both 110 and 220 voltage. Today we'll be testing how 110 volts works with flux core welding. Moving on, first we'll remove the wire feed spindle nut, which will allow us to put the wire spool onto the spindle. The wire is wound tighter than I thought it would be, and it started uncoiling itself before I could get the spindle lock back in place. So be careful with that when you get to this step. The default feed roller is the right size, which is 1 millimeter in diameter, or 4/100ths of an inch. Otherwise, make sure to put the right size feeder roll for your wire. You do that by flipping it over or using the other roller that is included in the kit. Once you feed wire through, you can secure the wire to the roller with the locking mechanism. Then you can use the feed wire button to push the wire all the way through the welding torch. Before the wire gets all the way to the tip, you'll have to remove the contact tip at the top of the torch. When the wire comes through, simply feed the contact tip back through it and screw the tip back on. With the hardware prep all done, the last thing to do is to double check the chart to ensure that we're at the right settings. We'll follow the flux core column in the chart for 1 millimeter flux wire, and that says we need 16.5 volts and 50 amps. Then we'll use the pretty simple LED screen to set everything up. At the top left, there's a toggle between 2T and 4T, which is basically choosing between holding the trigger to weld, 2T, or toggling between on and off, 4T. At the top right, we'll choose gasless, since that's what flux core welding requires. And continuing clockwise, we'll set it to MIG, since flux core is effectively gasless MIG welding. And lastly, we'll set it to 4/100ths of an inch. And again, the chart on the cover makes things super easy to convert between metric and imperial. Now the machine is ready to weld, but before we do, let's set up the bare minimum of welding protective gear. Here we have an auto darkening helmet from Harbor Freight, as well as some leather gloves that cover your arms and sleeve. The helmet is a requirement to avoid damaging your eyes from the electrical arc generated from the welder, and the gloves keep your hands safe from both the heated metal and the sparks flying. This is the minimum protection I had to film, and my gut says more protection is needed. Welders, please share your advice in the comments below. With that all set up, now we're ready to weld. Again, I'm not experienced enough to give guidance, but for me, I kept the wire about 1 inch out and tilted the wire to the right, kind of like holding a pencil in your right hand. Then I moved slowly across to let the wire pull onto the material. And the results? Not good. I clearly didn't move slowly enough, and there's a lot of gaps in the weld. It's also my first time wearing an auto-darkening helmet, which was really cool to see in action, but the severely limited vision is something to get used to. And here, as we set up for a second set of welds, I just want to be clear that the results of the weld have nothing to do with BestArc's welder. In fact, I feel pretty confident that as I gain more skill, the welder is going to serve all my DIY needs. I'm even excited to try gas-based MIG welding in the future to get a better sense of the differences between the two. And that's it. I hope you liked this video where we unbox BestArc's MIG145 welder. As a beginner, I'm glad I have a welder that feels like it can grow with me. Thanks again to BestArc for supplying the welder for me to try. If you're interested in learning more about it, links are in the description below. Thanks again for watching and supporting the channel. I'm Alan, and this is Metaloop. I'll see you next time.